It becomes God's fortress. And it is a city of refuge. Can your church, the Wallasey church, could be a city of refuge? And one of the questions is to the disabled people. Today's question, one of the very interesting questions. I'm excited to know that there's a question about disabled people, peoples with disability, and I personally work with them. And so this church should be a refuge to such kind of people. From the beginning, God has wrought through his people to bring blessing to the world. You and your church should be a blessing to the ancient Egyptians nation. God made Joseph a fountain of life. God picked up Joseph. Through the integrity of Joseph, the life of that whole people was preserved. Through Daniel, God saved the life of all the wise men of Babylon. And these deliverances should be an object lesson for young people, for you and me. They illustrate the spiritual blessings offered to the world, all throughout the world, through connection with God, whom Joseph and Daniel worshiped. They had an intimate connection with God through their life. And as a result, they were able to reflect the character of God to the people, to the nation around them. Everyone in whose heart Christ abides, that includes you, my young friends, that includes me. If Jesus is in you, you will be a new creature. Behold, he will be a new creature. And if Christ abides in you, everyone who will show forth his love to the world is a worker together with God for the blessing of the humanity, people around us, as he delivers from the Savior's grace to impart to others. That includes you. From his whole being flows forth the tide of spiritual life. And so today, as you listen to these answers from our panelists, I pray that we will be able to understand what is the purpose of our church as we address some of these questions, and how we have to, our lifestyle should be, how we could conduct our lives to glorify God through the church. All right, so the first question is a very interesting question. I wonder who asked this question. Do pastors and ministers of the gospel have training in disability ministry? If answer is no, then why not? And so we have our panel members. I throw this question to our beautiful people who are going to answer this. This is a very interesting question. Eld Deva Seelan, what do you say? Does pastors, you have been experienced in what do you say about whether our pastors are trained in this ministry?
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope I'm audible. Yeah, I
yes,
had, yes, you know, in our own family, we have our boys who have these learning difficulties. So maybe it is appropriate that I start first. I was trying to, look in the Bible and in Sister White's writings about, do I find any answer for this question? Do pastors and ministers of God have training in the disability ministry? But I didn't have any luck. But when I had a look at it, it said, at the 1995 General Conference sessions in Netherlands, the conference voted for a ministry, a disability ministry to people with disabilities. So the function, this ministry functions under the Personal Ministry Council and develop programs for members and others with disabilities. The aim, they said, was create witnessing programs, recommend how to make church facilities more accessible, help to solve their transportation problems, and so on. And if you look at the Bible, you look into the Bible, scripture tells us that God has the tenderness of a father towards his children. As a father shows compassion to his children, so the Lord shows compassion to those who fear him. For he knows our frame. He remembers that we are dust, Psalms 103, 13 and 14. In the Bible, in the New Testament also, we read Jesus healed the blind man, healed the lepers, and showed his love and compassion to people who had sickness and so on. We all know that in India, I think in Calcutta, I think North India, Mother Teresa, yet in her entire life, she served the lepers. So as a Christian community, whether an organization, a church, or a Christian union, or a pastor or minister, how do we treat and help the disabled people that we find among God's people in the world today? Do we need a special training? When I grew up, I never came across a special school for the children with disabilities. I heard of a blind school, the children with learning difficulties, people call it autism. I never came across, but I think the number of autistic children have over the years grown into a huge number, and teachers get specially trained. You have now even in the developed countries like America and the European countries, teachers go for this training, how to teach and handle and care for these children with learning difficulties and other disabilities. We look, if you look at the either in schools or colleges, Adventist colleges or universities, I don't think there is a separate field of study which trains our own pastors and ministers. That is basically because, so as a Christian community, whether it's a pastor or a minister or a church, do we need this training? The first thing, what as a minister and as a pastor or even a church member, for our responsibility is to approach disabled people with humility in the way that Bible instructs us to approach everyone. See, if you look at say 10 years, 20 years or 30 years back, in the society, if a family takes a disabled child, everyone looks at the child and the parent in a different way. I think, and they feel, the parents feel embarrassed. But now, the society, as a society, we accept it. It's not a, when Jesus healed the blind man, people asked, is that because of his sin or his parents' sin, he was born blind? But Jesus straight away said, no, it is, Christ has to be, God has to be glorified. That is the why it is like this. So I think now, as it is, our society, our church have accepted this disability as part of life, and everyone looks at it and approaches with love, with humility. So that's number one. The second one is we should, whether pastor or a minister or church, as a church, we should all serve this, this disabled people exactly as if we were serving God himself. So a minister or a pastor or a church to serve the church members, to serve the society and to serve God. Do we, yes, pastors and the ministers get trained, they go to universities and Adventist colleges, get trained. But do we need a separate or a special training? And as far as, if you ask me, I don't think they need a special training. But if there is, I think they should go for it. But as of now, I don't see a separate or a special training for them, because, in their current training itself, because the people with all these disability, part of a common society, so they should be willing to serve. They should be trained in their current training. They should be willing and have the capacity to serve the disabled people as it is.
Thank you, Eld Seelan, for your insight. Yes, maybe I will give my inputs after Sister Silva. Would you please share with us your thoughts on this?
There is training, and also this country's government have training programs for anyone. Now, I like how Brother DaSilva talked about us as fearing God, loving God, and having the qualities of the Holy Spirit in us, patience, loving, kindness, and so on. So even if you don't have official training, and end up with a certificate in looking after those who are beyond average, from Christ's point of view, there should be no problem. And when you're trying to do your best, you read and study, isn't it? We're trying to know more about God, so we read and we study. When we come to food, we have Sister White's thoughts on food, what is healthy. And today, in general, nutrition and healthy living is put forward to the public. There's so much info and it's available for us. So as Christians, we're bettering ourselves in God's word and in whatever science has there that is to help us to be better in our output, in our input, we should utilize. So whether you're a minister or not, whether you've got this training or not, as a Christian, you're trying to improve and you should seek for that. The consensus of people, we just love prejudices. You're fairer than me, you're richer than me, you're more educated than me, you're uglier than I am, you're poorer than I am. Whatever it is, we look, and Satan uses all of these things for hatred. Most of us, we all know Shirley, yes? Or Shirley from Wallasey. And she came to the Wallasey church. I think it was Pastor McCormick was there, and he was doing the Revelation seminar. She came in. It was her son, Gary. He came to the Revelation seminar, I think twice, and the third time he brought his mom, Shirley, and she never came. She never looked back. She never stopped coming to church. She studied, other programs we had. She came and she joined Sabbath school. She got baptized. And she had a daughter, Helen, who, was mentally handicapped. And I think she used to have epileptic fits as well. And just as Jackson, your son, sometimes he'd be noisy in church. And sometimes she'd be like that and she'd get up and walk around. And these particular members, God bless their souls, they were annoyed with that. And it was like, you can't come and bring her, So sometimes Gary would come to church and Helen would stay home to be, would be at home, and Shirley would be there with her. When Shirley came, Gary had to stay. And that wasn't right. You know, in the end, poor Helen, they went on a camping expedition from the special school, and there was faulty wiring and the place got burned. So the children, they had died of smoke inhalation, so they didn't feel the flames, you know, whatever. And then these people were sad, but they couldn't show that love for somebody who was different. And when you see things like that, or when we face things like that, we realize that we thought we were converted, but we aren't. So whatever education is there, even you can self-educate yourself. We've got the net, we can look up stuff. So it doesn't matter whether to me, whether the ministers had special training or not. You know, I know some of them do, some not, but as Christians, that's the difference. And I give you a sweet story. When back home, when I first joined the church, there was a lady who had a daughter who was spastic. And she always, her name was Roseanne. And she had her in the pushchair. I remember people talked to Roseanne, everybody chatted with her, played with her as if she was normal. And you can look, when you talk to somebody and you look in their eyes, you can see if they understand. Yeah? And so Rosanna felt normal. And I tell you how she felt normal because of her behavior, because of how she was treated. And when she was about 3 years old, she decided, after seeing the other children, I'm not going to go in a pushchair. And one Sabbath, as she's walking and her knees are wobbly and the chair is going left and right, and a big smile on her face. And the mom said, I'm tired. She wouldn't sit in the chair. I said, well, leave her, let her walk. And she had this determination because of the way she was treated. As she grew up as a teenager, she became a secretary. She wanted to go to the normal school. And God bless the people who were around her that encouraged her and the children. And she went and did shorthand and typing. And she got a job when she was 18, working in a big firm in our capital in Bridgetown. And then when she was about 20, 21, she got married to what we call a normal person, you know, and she lived as normal a life as possible. Not if everybody had treated her like something was wrong, she would eventually have believed it. So it depends on us. And we have beautiful children in our church. I always watch the way they treat Jackson. They know he's different, but they don't run from him. They don't deride him. They just love him as he is and accept him as he is. And I told his parents this about already. Jackson, he is like, he's locked in himself, you know, his body is locked in his mind or whatever. Because I would watch him at church. He knew everybody's name. When it was time to say praise, let us kneel for prayer, he would stop playing on his machine and he would look, and he was at the back with you and your wife, and he would look at everybody, scan everybody. And if somebody was slow to kneel down, he would just watch them till they kneel down. You know, it's like he was thinking, why are you getting down, you know? And they would kneel down. And if a name was called, he would look around for the person. And when he found them in the church, then he would go back to his tablet. Also, he knew the time. And he would look back at the clock. And when he think it was like, this is enough, but that person is still preaching, he would grab at his mom or dad and he would get up. And they wouldn't get him to sit down because he saw the time. You know, and so we have to pray God and ask him to open our hearts so that we are not prejudiced in any way, and that we give these children and their parents, and if it's an adult who is handicapped, that we give them the love and attention as if nothing was wrong. Because actually we all are handicapped. We only live to 70. Adam lived to almost 1,000 years, so we all short, yeah. We all come short of the glory of God.
Thank you, Sister DaSilva. Now move over to Sister Purty. Thank you, Sister. Please share your thoughts and we'll summarize at the end of all this.
Good afternoon, everyone. I think Eld Deva Seelan and Sister Cecile has spoken everything. I think I haven't got much to say. The question is like, is the ministers supposed to be trained for this disability ministry? I think as a person, as a human being, like if we are connected with God, our hearts and minds are connected with God, automatically we'll get the, the compassion, love for the family who have got this disabled children. We don't need training. Even if you ask the children, they will have the same answer. So we need to be humble and be kind and loving to the family. We know that they go through a lot themselves. We are human beings. I mean, we can't expect that everything should be fine with them. But in order for us to lessen their burden, we need to be kind to them, speak to them lovingly, and offer a hand if they need any help. But we shouldn't be a cause of, making them stressed by what we speak to them, how we react to them. For example, I know one family who have got 3 boys, and the eldest one is mentally and physically disabled. And I've seen them in the parties, like when we go, they take him everywhere. He's in a wheelchair. They take him to the parties, and the parents are so normal, and his siblings, last time when I saw them, the last one was 3 years old, and the second one was about maybe 7 or 8 years old. But they are looking after him so well. Their brother, he keeps drooling. The little one is going and wiping and then asking him, you're okay. And he's he's in a wheelchair and he's just smiling, to everyone. And everyone there seems to be understanding the family. I think that's the fact that the family are so open and they don't fear anything. They can just take this child anywhere. So I think that love should be there. And that's what makes you understand the family, and above all, the fear of God. And we should be connected with our heart and mind. Our connection should be with God.
Thank you, Sister. So to summarize, okay, let's straight away answer this question. Are the elders, the ministers? Probably not. They may not be a real curriculum incorporated in their schedules, their study programs. But for years, I myself, as a medical student, have never had a training in disability. This was not it was not in the society. It was not in the programs, but in the recent past, promotion. In fact, I should suggest this word: inclusion is what is very much relevant now. Inclusion, an inclusive society that includes all people of all kinds, that should be there. For example, in your church, do you have a ramp for a wheelchair to go through? For a disabled patient? This is something the church should promote, whether the pastors are trained or not. Since Wallasey Church is a vibrant church, it is a church. I have already witnessed 2 of your, I think, yearly programs, at least 2 you have conducted for special needs people with disabilities. So I think you should promote this awareness on people with disabilities, their rights on people with disabilities, the comforts they need to be given. The society should be including this. So you can develop, handbills on people with disabilities and how they can be included. Imagine the impact as a church you can make on people with disabilities. When they come to your church, they're transformed and they're able to live a, happier and comfortable life. Think of Jesus. Out of the 35 miracles, 27 of them, I'm just reading here, 27 touched people with special needs. He healed the boy who was unable to speak, a man who was paralyzed, and a deaf man. Jesus gives clear evidence that the worldwide church is to be involved in special needs ministries. Are you with me? Do you agree with me? Elder Seelan, I think you should, the church should promote this program, and our children should be involved in promoting this ministry, whether the pastor is involved or not. But your church can be responsible in involving our young people to be sensitive to the needs of those with special needs, special problems, those who are deaf or dumb, who cannot speak, who cannot walk, who is mentally ill. These are the needs. These are the people whom you can minister. You can speak to, you can preach gospel to those who are normal, but those abnormal ones, how does the gospel reach them unless we are sensitive to the needs of those? I have a beautiful illustration here. Ellen White says, I saw that it is in the providence of God that the widows and orphans, the blind and the deaf and the lame and all persons afflicted with a variety of ways have been placed in close Christian relationship to his church. It is to prove his people and develop their true character that God's people should be involved in this. Angels of God are watching to see how we treat these persons who need our sympathy, love, and disinterested benevolence. This is God's test of our character. If we have the true religion of the Bible, we shall feel that a debt of love, kindness, and interest is due to Christ in behalf of his brethren. When Jesus was on this earth, he said, the Spirit of the Lord was, what did he say? The Spirit of the Lord was upon me to preach the gospel. Can you imagine? And that's what it says. He says, the Spirit of the Lord has anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted. These are the ones who are helpless. People with disabilities are those who are brokenhearted. They're helpless. They're unable to do things like any other normal child or normal person. So you should be willing to do that for these brokenhearted, to proclaim the liberty to the captives. Above all these people in sin and darkness are to be given this good news of the gospel, and recovery of the sight to the blind, to set at liberty those who are oppressed. And I'm sure Wallasey Church, I encourage my young friends to be involved in this inclusion, this awareness activities. As a church, you could do this, and you could be an example for many other churches. And I'm excited about this question because I myself is involved in inclusion, blindness, and people with other disabilities. We have to look for those people and treat them first, make accessibility and affordability to these people who are desperately needed, because they have been a neglect. Nobody is trained to take care of them. Nobody is aware of how to care for these people. So let us be people who are involved in caring for these special needs and people with disabilities. You have something to share about this ministry. It's a very interesting topic that has come up.
The point I would like to make is that the spiritual needs of a disabled person or a differently able person and their family is definitely more than that of others. When Jesus was on this earth, he came across many physically challenged people. In fact, he healed them. He healed the blind, the lame, the deaf, and he healed the people who were possessed with demons. But before he could address their physical needs, you will often find that Jesus allayed their fears. He often said a word of comfort. He said, "Fear not, don't be afraid." And what I feel is that more than the physical support or the physical assistance that we may want to give to a disabled person, if we would be just good human beings, manifesting sympathy, kindness, genuine love and concern towards that person. Many times, we take care of a disabled person with a sense of burden, or uh, you may make the person feel as though it is just a waste of time. So, but if we exhibit a genuine concern and sympathy for the person, and that is all they need. And of course, their spiritual needs are much greater than those of others, because they are challenged in every way, especially the parents of disabled children. They need support and they need kindness. And in regard to the training that ministers should undergo to treat disabled people, um, is that if they can um, just be good human beings, good Christians, if they could see um, Jesus in all of these suffering people, and if they attend to them, I feel it is more than enough. Jesus says, "In as much as you have done it unto the least of these, my brethren, you have done it unto me." So I don't feel that they need any special training. They just need to be kind, sympathetic.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any questions from the audience before we go on to the next question? This is a very interesting, exciting question.
Yeah, just another comment. It depends on how we react, our closeness to God, isn't it? When I was pregnant with Jonathan, I was 37. They call me an elderly primate, and they say as you get older, there's a chance of Down syndrome. Yeah, so they tested my blood, and the enzymes were there, and they wanted to do an amniocentesis, which is they wanted to take a sample of the fluid that was around the baby. Now I know as a nurse and a midwife that there's a danger in that I could go into labor and the baby could miscarry. Abort is the medical wording. And I said to her, no, I don't want that done. And she said, but it came back a 50-50 chance. And I said, no, my baby is going to be okay. She looked at me like I was mad, because I had that faith in God. I said, whatever the baby is, I'm having this baby. And also the reason for having the amniocentesis was to start an abortion if the baby was supposed to be, Down syndrome. The next thing they tell you is to have the baby aborted. And there was no way I was going to do that, because God put the life there. So as a Christian, we have to rise above and beyond what scientists say, what the world says. And so I said, no. She thought I was crazy. And she said something to the doctor, but doctor, he was a Christian as well. So he said, no, leave it, And Jonathan is a scientist, And I've worked, when I was in Scotland, there were two Down syndrome young people. One actually ran the village shop that belonged to her parents, and when they died, the social services wanted to put her into care, and the villagers came out and said no. And it so happened that the auditor was coming that day, and he said for the last 10 years, she's been doing the books and everything. Nothing's wrong with her. And the other one, the young man, he was 21, and he learned motor mechanics, and he opened his own garage. So we see that when people look at things from a selfish point of view, you don't know the future. And just like Roseanne, she lived a relatively normal life. And so we cannot judge. We need to put our faith in God. And as your wife said, Mrs. Jacobs, that that love that God puts in us, that is what should guide us in whatever decisions we make about ourselves or anyone.
Thank you, sister. Now, I always want some response from young people. Probably the rest of the questions, I may not be asking for a commitment or an action plan, but this is something the church can do. Maybe Lydia should answer to me. What can this church, Wallasey Church, can decide or do about this? What can we do about this, the peoples with disabilities, and how can we help the community around? I'm sure out there, many are there. Can you come out with some suggestion, an action plan that can be followed up in the leadership next year? We can recommend to the church. I'm sure I really will not be part of that, but I just wanted to see some recommendations coming up from young people. What you could do to help these peoples with special needs.
I think, I don't know if this isn't a new suggestion, Dr. Jacob, but recently we've had this a special Sabbath for people who are differently abled. I think this was already mentioned. One of the panelists mentioned it, and I've not seen a special program conducted in the church for differently able children in any other churches. And
Right.
when we had the program, people from all over the world joined in, and people from the orphanage, people from special homes, the children there had participated. They had sung songs and did mission story and feature talk. And I think that awareness for our children in our church is really good, because I remember Uncle Prem telling me that the end of that Sabbath, little Kingi went up to Uncle Prem and said, who's going to look after these little children, and who's going to give them food and milk and drink? And the thought of that little child is what we need to do. We need to make people aware, and especially with the younger generation, especially in our church. I think that is one of the things we can follow up by making sure, because we have Women's Day program, we have Children's Day program, Father's Day, Mother's Day, we have lots of special programs in the church. And I think this is one thing that it would be really good if we were consistent in having maybe every quarter or every other quarter in our church, where we have a special Sabbath dedicated for children in need, or children who are differently abled.
Thank you, Lydia. Thank you. You're already doing that. So the church in action to the communities around you. Yes, we are creating this awareness through churches to our people who are already in our churches. But what about the communities who really are there? Can the church be involved in creating an action plan to the communities around you right there? Maybe there are some special churches, schools are there, and maybe you could take these children and show them. And I'm sure there could be many things. I want to ask these young little ones and the children there, if there's something is motivating them to say, to act upon, an action plan, real in action. Vanessa, Bithya, I'm sure, are they there? Yes.
While they're thinking, maybe Uncle Jacob,
okay. Yes.
there are special schools in Wallasey. So when I was a little girl, I did some volunteering, and I went to Jackson School, and I volunteered during my summer holidays. Not the whole summer holidays. I think it was a couple of days. Maybe we can bring that as a suggestion, where we arrange a couple of days where we can go and volunteer in a special needs school. Maybe we can suggest this to Uncle Prem and see if he can organize something like that for us.
I'm sure it's going to be exciting, and it's really going to be a very exciting event for our young people, and also they will understand the real needs of those who are in need, and also it'll be a motivation to be able to help out and help those. And I'm sure you can come out with an action plan. So I just wanted to create some kind of a desire for our young people to be involved in helping those in distress. Thank you very much, the panelists, for your interesting answers. So The next question is, these are all questions that are debatable, and we can go on answering these, and may not be practicing or following, but let us tell our young people what it is. Seventh-day Adventist Church and birthdays, Eid celebrations, special occasions, birthdays, anniversaries, Father's Day, Mother's Day, Easter, Christmas in church. Is it right to use prior celebrating these in the church? Perhaps before that, we must know whether actually we should celebrate this at all. If we answer that, probably I have some quotes here recorded how these celebrations have come up actually, and then I will leave leave for the answering of the question. This is from the Inspired Word. Christians who practice festivals and holidays that are tied up to paganism or have pagan roots. Some of these celebrations have pagan roots. So I'm not discouraging our young people not to have celebration, but just to let people know that these are all how they have originated. Birthdays originated from an ancient Egypt. They would celebrate the birth dates of their gods and goddesses. That's how it all began. Then other people started celebrating their rulers' birth dates. And then pagans started to celebrate their own birth dates. Not once in the Bible have any prophet or saint celebrated their own birthdays. It's a day celebrating and giving glory to yourself. This is actually from the Satanic Bible. Alistair Crowley said that the greatest holiday for a Satanist is their birthdays, since they are their own gods and feel like they deserve to celebrate themselves. We should not be celebrating these days. Jesus hates them. Actually, if you go read this Revelation 2:6, we have studied about this in our churches, in the study of our churches. But this you have, that you hate the deeds of the Nicolaitans, which I also hate. This is actually what is recorded in the Bible. This is how they originated. And so Ellen White says, on birthday occasions, the children should be taught that they have reason for gratitude to God for his loving kindness in preserving their lives for another year. It is not to be a great celebration of pomp and glory, but to glorify God. These should be occasions of gratitude to our Heavenly Father for his loving kindness in preserving their life for yet another year. Precious lessons might thus be given by teaching them this: for life, for health, for food, for clothing, no less than for the hope of eternal life. We are indebted to the giver of all mercies, and it is due to God to recognize his gifts and to present our offerings of gratitude to our greatest benefactor. These birthday gifts are recognized of heaven. When you recognize on your birthday what is due unto God, teach them to review the past year of their life on birthdays, to consider whether they would be glad to meet its record just as it stands in the books of heaven. Encourage young people in them serious thoughts whether their deportment, their words, their works are of character pleasing to God. Have they been making their lives more like Jesus, beautiful and lovely in the sight of God? On birthdays, teach our young people the knowledge of the Lord, his ways, his precepts. And Eld White said, I've said to my family and my friends, I desire that no one shall make me a birthday or a Christmas gift unless it is be with permission to pass it on to the Lord's treasury, to be appropriated in the establishment of missions. So this is the stand of the church. But whether to celebrate birthdays, and I'm sure we must all celebrate birthdays of our children to glorify God. I'd like to throw this question to our panelists, and Eld Seelan, would you begin answering this question? The question is, can we celebrate in the churches?
Okay. Yeah. I think Dr. Jacob mentioned all the quotes from Sister White, the admonitions that she wrote about birthdays and all that. But if you look in, if you read through the Bible, there is no specific prohibition against celebrating birthdays, Mother's Days, and Father Days, and other days, special days, wedding anniversary days in Scripture, nor is there anything to indicate that we should celebrate them. So scripturally speaking, it is a non-issue. But, the people who talk against celebrating birthdays, when I, back in India, if we ask pastors to come and then give a small talk, they normally quote this. And then they say, oh, people celebrated their birthdays, and at the end, it was a disaster. They quote, Bible mentions two individuals celebrating their birthdays. The Egyptian Pharaoh in Joseph's time, Genesis 40:20, King Herod in the time of Jesus, Matthew 14 and Mark 16. Some point to this non-believing individuals as evidence that celebrating birthday is wrong. Yes, Dr. Jacob mentioned that it is a pagan one. It's a pagan ritual. But however, the Bible does not state or even hint it was right or wrong for it was wrong for Pharaoh or Herod to celebrate his birthday. Neither does Scripture say anything to discourage anyone from celebrating a birthday. But if you actually see how they celebrated the birthdays, that is important, isn't it? Like drinking and having a big, feast, throwing a big party, dance and all that, So that is not a biblical way of celebrating the birthdays. You rightly mentioned, is it like, as early as 1890, Sister Ellen White wrote, and I think Dr. Jacob read this quote, on birthday occasions, the children should be taught that they have reason for gratitude to God for his loving kindness in preserving their lives for another year. That should be the priority of celebrating the birthday, to remember God and his leading in the past year, and to thank him for the love and the grace. Like the thing is, if you see this, the birthdays, wedding anniversaries, and Mother's Days and Father Days, Mother's Day, Father's Day, when we grew up as children, I never used to even remember my birthday. It's only when you go to a school or college or on occasions where you need to fill your date of birth, that is when you have to go back your certificate and then or ask your parents or grandparents and fill in. I don't think I ever celebrated my birthday until my children told me about my birthday and then started celebrating. So that is why it is. But nowadays, children start telling their parents about their birthday. They start counting. I have this many days left for my birthday. So that is how the modern generation is. Also nowadays we see parents taking special pains to buy the gifts and present to the children upon their birthdays. So they make this occasion of honoring the child as though honor were due to the human being. Like I think one of the sister quotes is, Satan has had his own way in these things. He has diverted the minds and the gifts to the human beings. Thus the thoughts of the children are turned to themselves as if they were to be made the objects of this special favor. But I think, in our church, we have a wonderful way of celebrating, not celebrating or remembering our birthdays. We ask, anyone who have celebrated the birthdays, so we sing 3 or 4 beautiful lines, and we ask one of our elders or someone to pray for them. So I don't think that is wrong in doing in the church, as long as you do it not against the word of God. Birthdays or Mother's Day, whatever days, should remind us of God's care. It's impossible to have a birthday or a wedding anniversary day and not to be reminded of our dependency on the Lord for every year of his life-giving care. These special days should give us an opportunity to express our appreciation to God for the many blessings that we receive from day to day. So I think if we celebrate on the right way, giving honor and giving thanks to God, and not thinking so greatly of our own self, and remember God's leading and guidance, I think it's not wrong to celebrate these special days. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Over to Sister DaSilva.
Yeah, following on from what both of you said, I think back about how we celebrate in our church, and how beautiful it is, that the children know that it's God who has lengthened their lives. When we get the elders to pray for them, and we're thanking God that they've had another year. And so they depend more on God. We usually have a cake, but it's limited how much of the cake they have. They share the cake. And also in our tithe envelope, we have that little area that says birthday offering. So we're giving our gifts. When Jonathan was growing up, I think he was about 3 years old, I took him to the bank and he opened an account with £1. And from then we taught him all his birthday monies that he got from relatives, some who were not Adventists, he paid a tithe out of it. And I gave him, he had 2 toy boxes, and that was it. And every year that he had a birthday, we would go to the toy box and he would take out the toys that he didn't use. And he was very good at taking care of his stuff, and it was all in good condition. And he would donate it for charity. So he knew he was limited to how many toys he had. All the birthday monies was banked. And he actually, when he was 10 years old, he bought furniture for his bedroom. So we're teaching the children the importance of the dependence on God for life. We're teaching them good stewardship, not to, when they have the birthday gifts. We're teaching them benevolence, to share what they have. And so it's a different type of celebration, because celebration is a coming together to be joyful about some important occasion in your life. And we know God gave them festivals to the Israelites. They celebrated the end of harvest and stuff like that. So to help them to make a joyful spirit. I remember at one stage, some of our older members, some years ago, we used to have a tree in the church, and there were little socks put on it, and they used to put money in the socks, and we would take it after in the new year, and we did the school of the blind. We did the school of hearing impaired, and we have those special schools here on the world. And so the managers, the chairpersons of these organizations came on a Sabbath and received a gift from our children. And they gave a little like certificate or a little certificate to thank us for the hundreds, that was given. And so far, I think the children were quite happy. They were quite pleased, you know, to be involved in stuff like that. And to always, like, for my anniversaries, we talk about it. And I always thank God, you know, the 35 years we've been together, for keeping us together. We're both alive. We haven't knocked each other off, you know, and despite the downs, you know, we've had some ups and lots of downs, but God has helped us through that. So in the celebration of the anniversary, you know, and as people like Dr. Prem will say, you know, I've made it, you know, God has helped me to make it another year in this marriage together. And we look back and we realize that we are happy. We're happy for another year of our birth. We're happy for another year of anniversary. And I think in all things, you know, there's two ways of doing something, isn't it? God's way or our own way, which is Satan's way.
Thank you, Sister. Over to Sister Sujeeta.
I don't think anyone over here who don't like celebrating their birthdays. I think everyone loves their birthdays. They were born and they're thankful to God. And also sometimes, you know, when your dear one or your loved one, when they don't remember your birthday, you get upset, don't you? So it's, I mean, we see that as God has given the gift of life to us. So the day that we were born, we celebrate as a gift given by God. So I know, like, when we see in this worldly life, people celebrate birthdays in different ways, you know, which is, I think, not appropriate as an SDA to celebrate, but to be, I mean, we can call few friends and families and pray for that individual who's celebrating their birthdays, and be thankful to God for their life and for their contribution in our life. So, I mean, as Eld Seelan was saying, like, and the Bible doesn't mention anywhere that which says like we should not celebrate. But as we see the Sabbath, like God gave us a Sabbath, you know, each week we come to worship. We are celebrating the Sabbath. All 6 days we are working, and then the day comes, seventh day, we are coming to celebrate the Sabbath. So, I mean, in the same way, we see like how we celebrate our birthdays or anniversaries or Mother's Days, Father Days. But above all, to keep it in mind that God should be our priority, and keeping God first in our life, and celebrating this, that's what it should matter. And this is what we should teach our children as well. We know sometimes we try to give expensive gifts and all. I think at some point, I think I feel personally, I think that's not right. I mean, spending so much money, just a small gift, just a token of love, you know, just to appreciate, you know, even our friends and all, we just give a small gift to appreciate what they mean to us in our life. So I think that's what it should be like. Thank you.
Thank you, sister. You know, there was a child who was listening to one of our video presentations, and she told her mother, many people in India are blind. On my birthday, I want to give them sight. So she told all her friends, you don't give me any gifts, but you give eyesight to the blind people in India. So she has given 7 eyes, 27 eyes to on her birthday. Can you believe? She actually generated on her birthday gifts for operating upon 27 children or 27 patients. So that's one way of, you know, celebrating a birthday if you are celebrating. So there are many ways, as long as we are glorifying God and not to glorify our lives, I think it's good. And to have a worship and to recognize someone on a birthday in the church and praying for them, I think it's really good. And it's good recognizing them, recognizing the individual, and also thanking God as a church, as a community for their life is definitely indeed praise. I'd like to ask you to close this question.
Sorry,
Did you-
Dr. Jacob, before you go any further, I was just watching, the President of India giving, medal to the people, for their social work and all. In that, I had seen a girl, she was, I think, 10 years old. And what she does is, on her birthday, every year, she plants 30 trees. And she was encouraging to others, we should do this on our birthday, something that other can see in us and they can follow. So that was a good thing as well. So I just wanted to add that.
Certainly, thank you, sister. Yeah, you can do anything for the good of others, the environment and preservation of God's creation. Yes. Can you wind up? And I'd like to ask Lydia, how much more time do we have in this session?
Another hour and 10 minutes, Uncle.
We have a lot of time. So thank you for your time. And can you share with us?
To me, each day is a new day and each day is a gift from God. I consider every day as a birthday, a new day. Of course, birthdays are very special. They are occasions of joy and thanksgiving. And as Sister Cecile put it, there are always two ways for anything, God's way and the world's way. And what I feel personally is that God is not against celebrations. In fact, He wants us to be happy. He wants us to be joyful. And birthdays are indeed days of joy and thanksgiving. A day where we can recognize and acknowledge God's leading in our lives and be grateful for it. And what I feel is that birthdays can be days where we can make new resolutions, as we do on New Year's Day. We can reflect on God's leading in our past life, and we can look at the record that we have made, and we can make changes in our lives, and we can make new resolutions. And birthdays are not about us, it's more about God. It's more about God's mercies and His leading, and in expression of our gratitude, as others have expressed, we can pledge something for God, pledge probably our time, our gifts, our talents to God's glory. And I feel there is nothing wrong in celebrating a birthday as long as we do not, spend much time or much of our energy and much of our money in celebrating. But if you could just gather a few of our friends, and if we can ask the pastor to pray for us and be thankful and be happy, that's the best way to, show our appreciation and show our thankfulness to God.
Thank you. Any questions from the audience before we go to the next question? We have two questions, and they are very interesting questions as well. Any questions from the young people on birthdays and birthday celebrations?
I have a question, Dr. Jacob.
Yes, sister.
Is
Thank you.
celebrating Christmas by playing Secret Santa, is it right or wrong?
A very interesting question. Thank you for bringing that out. And Christmas is on the way, so it's good to talk about it. Is celebrating, we must talk about whether celebrating Christmas is first and celebrating the secret friend Santa. That's what's the question you're asking?
Yes.
Nancy.
Very good.
Yes. So who has answer to this first this question?
I would like to attempt the question.
Sister, let me ask you, where are you calling? Where are you talking to us from?
I'm from Botswana. I'm in
Oh,
Botswana.
thank you very much. Thank you. I'm noticing you have been very regular. You're still part of the Wallasey Church. Thank you so much.
Yes, yes.
You're
Yeah.
welcome. Please.
We should remember that, Satan has counterfeit of everything that is good from God. When whatever God has created, good and perfect, or whatever is, even if the scripture doesn't say it, whether it's wrong or not wrong to celebrate it or do it, Satan always has another extra thing to it. He counterfeits it, and then he adds something that is going to attract people to go after it. Like Jency just saying that, Secret Santa, the addition of Santa in it, that's an extension of something that is okay. Because usually the Secret Santa is like making work people in colleagues. They buy gifts for each other. They just pick names and what have you, and buy gifts for each other for Christmas. And then Satan throws in the word Santa so that people can start believing in Santa issue, which Christians don't believe in. So this is what we have to be cautious about. Once something is good, is okay to do, and then it adds something and another connotation of another name like Santa, that goes out of proportion. And like here in Southern Africa, we have a church which observes the Sabbath. It keeps the Sabbath, I tell you that. So Friday is preparation day, Saturday, they worship the whole day. They are very particular about a lot of things. But the question is, whom are they glorifying? They have got another, a priest in South Africa who was a Seventh-day Adventist. And now they are worshiping him. So they keep the Sabbath, but under this man, not under God. So that's why we need to teach our children to know and realize that the devil counterfeits God's good things. It's nothing wrong giving gifts, but once it adds Santa in it, that's something else. We worship the Sabbath, which is created by God, but somebody who was an Adventist, Satan has led him to extend it for people to worship him, not God. So this is the whole idea. Let's be cautious, teach our children that anything that goes beyond, like everybody has been saying, a small token and doing something good, there's nothing wrong with that. But when it is blown out of proportion, where people dance, all sorts of things are happening, then you notice that this is not the way God would want me to spend my time with him or with the gifts that I've been given, but I have to glorify him for the life that I've been given. Thank you.
Thank you, sister. Anybody else?
Yeah, I could say to Jancy, if you feel uncomfortable, let them know that not to involve you in it. And yeah, not to give you a gift when you're not giving them one. Yeah.
Yes, Auntie Cecile, because just a week back, my colleagues made that plan so that we can play that within the group. So I didn't want it to be a part of it because according to them, Christmas is only eating, drinking, and giving gifts to each other. So I said them, I don't want to be a part of it because I'm not sure whether I'm allowed to be a part of it. And that's why I wanted to make sure what I did was right.
Yeah. And also like for the new year, you could take them, some little gift that everyone on the ward can eat, biscuits or whatever, and say it's a thank you for them being, good co-workers. So then they see that you didn't do it because you don't want to spend money on anyone, that you do care for them. At the end of the year, you take in a gift for everyone and say, thank you for helping me and being, my good co-workers.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
yeah.
Please go ahead.
My question is like we all know that we Adventists, these Christmas days are not the actual days Christ was actually born. They are all pagan days that we do celebrate. So, as a church in Wallasey or other Adventist churches, why do we particularly sing Christmas carols during particular period where we know they might not be the actual day Christ was born?
So, anybody would like to answer? So,
Yes, you could sing Christmas carols any time of the year. But at this year, at this time of the year, as Ellen White said, it's an opportunity because the world is looking now, and some people are hearing about Christ for the first time. So we use that as an opportunity to witness to them. So as Christians, we're not going to say, I'm not going to sing any carols, because the carols are about his birth and the joy that he, the angels talk about that he brought to his birth. So years ago, when I was young, we used to, not only in Barbados but here, we would have a choir and we would go to the homes, here in around Liverpool, Wallasey. We go to the homes and sing the carols at that time of year, because people are locked away, and so they can remember their childhood Christmases with their family, and we're singing about Christ. Because there are two types of carols, isn't it? You have the jingle bell ones, the jingles, and Frosty the Snowman and all of that. But you have the carols, which are singing about Christ, joy to the world, and him coming as a babe to die for us. Because it's amazing when you look at the world. He's born in Christmas in December. Yeah, that they would celebrate his birth in December. Into the next couple months of the new year, they kill him off. He's crucified after a few months. So we don't celebrate Good Friday either. These are things that we can sing about anytime in the church. His birth, his death, his resurrection, his second coming. And the homes, they usually ask, is anyone coming? They usually send out for someone to come and cheer the inmates, the homes for the elderly. So we go at Christmas time, because that's the time that they allow people in, but not with the COVID that's going on now. And they love the hymns that we sing, the carols, and they say, oh, wish you come back. And so then we have the opportunity of going during the year and singing God's praises. And we always usually have a small sermon that have about 5-10 minutes, introducing these folk, whether they're elderly or whatever the reason we're going to the place, the home, children's home or whatever, as an introduction to God. So we let them know, yes, we are Christians, and we know that Jesus wasn't born, but it's an opportunity to utilize.
Thank you, sir. I hope these questions are answered. I know it's very, yes, sir. Yes, Mr.
All right. So why do we have to go to the extent of buying a Christmas tree and putting them in the church? If it was somebody to believe that these are pagan days that we do celebrate, then we don't have to go to that extent, because we are not giving them the good message, are we?
You've answered the question.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, these are all pagan. Even Christmas tree is a pagan practice. These are questions that are very difficult to answer. But Ellen White says we should tell our children. We should tell about Christmas and let them know Jesus was born. It's an opportunity to let the children and the people know about it. So we may not be practicing the day as a Christmas day, that was the day and Jesus was born, but you could, as it was pointed, we could sing Christmas carols anytime, but this is the time people are looking forward to about Christ's birth, and it's an opportunity to share them that Jesus was born, and not on that day, but Jesus was born in this world, and he has come to save the people, and he has died for us, and an occasion to share. I think that's where the church, we believe definitely that's 25th is not the Christmas day. And we are not, as the church, celebrate on that day for Christmas. And the rest of the things we, as families, for our children, we do is something that we may have to make choices for ourselves. I hope Sis Chancy's question is answered, and so is Mr. Amphasad, at least partially is answered. Is there someone to conclude this question? Answer.
Yes, Dr. Jacob, thank you. Thank you for answers. And I think Richie had a question, so I've just spotlighted her.
Please, please.
Yes, Auntie. I just want to ask, many people in my school abbreviate Christmas as Xmas. So, of course, the X crosses out the Christ part of the word. So I just wanted to know if we're allowed to call it as Xmas, or should we just call it Christmas?
The X actually is to point to the cross, because some people believe that the cross wasn't like that the cross was like an X. And that's why they've put that, the cross. Yes. But I don't think you should abbreviate anything, because you miss the meaning of stuff. It's just like when you're sending text, and it helps you with your learning, because a lot of people, they're texting, and if they're saying this is for you, they put the letter for. I like that too, they put two. So then they realize, then when you ask them to put two, they put T-O when it's T-O-O. So try not to abbreviate things. Anything, especially Christmas.
Thank you, Auntie.
I hope, Vanessa, you got your answer.
Oh, I
Very
wanted to
interesting.
talk. Yeah, sorry, we didn't mention Christmas cards. Where I work, I work with traumatized women, what you call it, an association, and I also work with another association, volunteer, that deals with the refugees and asylum seekers and minority peoples. Yes, where the place I work, I volunteer, about 70 languages are spoken. And at this time of year, especially with the refugees and asylum seekers, it's the first time in their life there's peace. It's the first time in their life that they can sleep without bombs going off. It's the first time in their life that they can walk on the streets and not have to hide. And because this is, in general, Britain is a Christian country, they celebrate these Christian festivals. And because people have been so kind and brought them here, to have a life, we give them a home. We furnish the home. We help them to learn the language. We help them to bring up their certificates. Sometimes they have to do 3 months, 6 months, so that they can work under their professions. And they're very thankful. And because they know it's a Christian country, when these festivals, because they don't know better, you see, they don't know the pagan influence that started these festivals. So they want to celebrate Christmas and Easter. And so as a Christian, I have to be careful how I'm talking to them. I won't say I don't celebrate Christmas, I don't celebrate Easter, but to be simple with them, yeah? And they bring cards, even the Muslims, they give in Christmas cards, the Thai, the Buddhists, believers, the Hindus, they all get involved, and we have a program where they actually taught the Christmas story, and the children are able to look at the pictures and stuff like that. So we have to be, like Jesus said, as wise as serpents and harmless as doves. And one of the things I did when we moved into our house, and to make sure that they're religious Christmas cards you're giving, not Santa, the ones that have the baby Jesus and the angels and so on, so that, and the poems inside that talk about his birth, so that you're educating them. And when I came, to that house, you know, people greet you and so, but I didn't know anyone. So I put Felix's name and my name on the card, and I put them through all the mailboxes. Yeah, so they got to know us, and we got to know them. So remember what Jesus said: wise as serpents, harmless as doves, and whatever opportunity comes, ask God to guide you and grab it.
We move on to the next question. And this is again interesting question. We will should a woman cover her hair in church? Can a woman let her hair down in church or have short hair? Please explain 1 Corinthians 11, 6-7, 1 Corinthians 11, 15. And we will ask our panelists, we will begin with our ladies. So I request Sister Purty, would you like to begin answering this question? Are you there, sister? Like to ask Sister Sujeeta is there? So can you hear me? Okay. Let's talk about head covering of women in the church.
Says here, like, should a woman cover her hair in church, or can woman let her hair down in church or have short hair? As you see in I was reading like how Rachel, like when they approached her, you know, to say like, I mean, when she saw any man or anything, like she covered her hair, you know, and that shows like dignity. Sorry, I'm not getting the word. It's just that I just had a message saying one of my uncle is passed away, so I'm just a little bit black. So I think if you carry on, Lydia, sorry.
That's
I'm
absolutely
sorry
fine.
to hear that, and I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sorry, I did not know.
Yes.
Sorry. So please pass on our condolences to the family. I'd like to pass on this question, and whenever you're able to join us, you could give your Eld Deva Seelan, you have some thoughts on this?
Yeah. Should I go after Sister Cecile?
Okay.
Because you know,
Yeah,
when you started, I thought it's to do with the ladies. So maybe I can be the last. So
I thought so. So, but
so I'll go after Sister Cecile.
Yes, sure.
For me, it's he's talking a cultural thing. I was looking at this many times before. When you go on from read from verse 3. But I would have you know that the head of every man is Christ, and the head of the woman is the man, and the head of Christ is God. I changed those words because my head is Christ, because my husband is infallible, and my salvation doesn't depend on my husband. You know, God made the two of us equal, you know, took from the rib. So my personal opinion is Christ is the head of both of us. Yeah. Then in the next verse it said, every man praying or prophesying, having his head covered, dishonoreth his head. We don't have any pictures. I don't know how I would find something about the Jewish man and the Jewish faith in Paul's time. He said the man should uncover the head. But to you know, in modern times and in 20s, 1910s, the Jewish men, they cover their heads to pray. You know, they had the little hat. And they put that on when they pray. He's saying the man shouldn't pray or prophesy with the heads covered. So I think it's something cultural, right? And I'm started with the men. And then today you see the Jewish men, they have the hats, the ones who have the curls, the Orthodox. And then the other ones, they have the little round cap that they wear. And the Muslim men, they have the cap, they pray with their heads covered. Now Paul is saying here that the man dishonoreth his head if his head is covered. But Jews today, the males, they cover their heads when they are praying. And my husband, when we leave in the house, we always pray. And if he puts on his hat, he takes off his hat when he's going to pray. So I think it's just a personal thing. It's not something that is going to separate you from God. For women, I think if you've got all your hair out and like Vanessa and Melissa and the girls, Dolly, they have all this beautiful long hair. So, you know, if you're sitting in church and you're bending over your book, it's going to be falling everywhere and get, you know, so it could be tied back. When I first was going to church as an Adventist and growing up, we always wore hats, you know. And then there were people who came into the church, into the faith, and hats were expensive. They were a luxury. So they couldn't wear a hat because they couldn't buy a hat. And so that rule was put aside, you know, these ladies can't afford, so they leave it like that. So for me, with or without the hat, it doesn't matter. Long hair, short hair, it doesn't matter. So it's what's in your heart. And when Peter talks about not the braiding of your hair or the wearing of the attire or the wearing of jewelry, he's talking about get your heart right first. I don't have much else to say. That's it.
Eld Seelan?
Yes, Doctor. Okay. As Adventist, we have, you know, traditionally taken what the Bible says as it is, unless its context suggests otherwise, like the prophecies and, you know, like a day equal to 1 year and, you know, all that. But in some cases, a biblical passage may be addressing to a topic of relevance only to the original readers, such as, you know, for instance, removing one's sandals when approaching God, a sign of reverence and respects. Okay, so you know, because see, I came to this country around say 20 years back. Yeah, I think 18, 19 years back. And then I think last 4 or 5 years back, I went to India to one of the churches in Chennai. And I completely, it was not my intention, but I was so used to, you know, in our churches here, we go with our shoes inside the church and we don't take it out. So I completely forgot. And then I went inside the church, and then one of the church elders looked at me as though I have murdered somebody. So that was the look. So then I realized, oh, I looked at my shoes and this, how, terrible I was. I completely forgot. So I ran and removed my shoes and then came inside. So, that was it's to talk about the custom. In India, our custom was to leave the shoes outside, at the entrance of the church. But here we can come in. So, but there are places in the world when you have, remove your shoes before entering Adventist church. But in the Western world, we show our reverence to God in different ways. I think in the same way, we interpret Paul's counsel on female head covering as a cultural issue. Paul is not discussing the veil that covered the face of a woman, but a shawl placed on the head during worship. See, the use of a female head covering, if you go back, it was common in Greek and Roman societies. In fact, the shawl was a part of a Greek robe, not a separate piece. So that was the same case in Jews. In this Roman culture, female head covering was a symbol of high moral values, preservation of femininity, and commitment to the husband. Wearing it brought to the husband and the family, wearing it brought honor to the husband and the family. I think Sister Cecile read, every man praying, prophesying his head covered dishonors his God. But I think before that, every man, the head of every man is Christ. The head of woman is man. So in their culture, the head of the woman is the man. So that was their culture. So that's why it says here, where is it? So that was the case among so that's why it says female head covering was a symbol of high moral values, preservation of femininity, and a commitment to the husband. Okay, but Paul was not promoting among Christians a social practice related to the proper clothing. He says the basic values represented by the head covering was compatible with the Christian message, and rejecting practice could have brought discredit to the church. But even in those, it says, but not of all Roman women covered their heads. Wealthy women were somewhat socially liberated, and it is possible that some of them became Christians and did not cover their heads in worship. So Paul would have been trying to correct that attitude to protect the integrity of the community of the believers. So, that was why he was so. But even here, 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 15 says, if a woman has a long hair, it is a glory to her, but hair is given to her for a covering. I think we read up to that, but if you read 16th verse, if anyone seems to be contentious, we have no such custom, nor do the church of the God. So the conclusion is, it is not compulsory that you need to cover. And, if you attend in a church where 99 women cover their heads and just one lady sitting there without covering, so that will look odd. So in the same way, but the Bible doesn't say, if your custom says cover it, yeah, you can very well do it. But if you don't cover it, that's not the problem. Like when we grew up, we used to see long hair, women having long hair. But nowadays, I used to see, when, back in India and in my younger days, we have the barber shop only for men. But nowadays, you have the beauticians and shops and all that for both. Even the barber shop, it says unisex. So not only men go to cut their hair, women go there to beautify, make it short, curly, like, they buy the hair dryer, and on top of it, now there is a thing called straightener. You can straighten your hair all along. So, now can we ask, is it wrong to use the straightener? Because it's not actually, if you see, it's not very good for health. So it's not that it is a wrong attitude, or it is a sin to have a short hair. You can have short hair or long hair according to your what is the right word I'm looking for? According to your convenience. If you're happy with the long hair, it's Bible says it is a glory to her. So that's fine. But then at the end it says it is if somebody have any contentious, then it's okay. So that's my suggestion, I think.
Brother Seelan, you talked about straightening the hair. They also put curls in, they perm it, or they bleach it, or what have.
Oh yeah, another thing you see now. Okay, see, the thing is, I will conclude with just one more statement. See, the society has come to the very extreme. I think sometime back I was walking in one of the Liverpool city center on road, and I saw one lady having, shaved on one side, the other side the hair is, hanging. So it looked terrifying, to see one side there is no hair, and just half of this side there is hair. And you can nowadays see, we used to see only hair in black color, but now you see different colors. So I think that's very important as children of God, how we maintain ourselves. Don't look at what the world, the women in the world do, but how we care for ourselves, how we present ourselves as Adventist men and women, how we present ourselves, how we keep ourselves. I think that is more important. Doesn't matter whether it is short or long, but don't look at the other side and then do what they do. But if it is presentable to God, I think we should stick to that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Bila? Go ahead.
I just have a question. I do not really have an answer for this. If covering the head was a cultural issue, then why did God lay specific instructions for both the genders, for the male as well as the female? To women, God has admonished, or through Paul, he has admonished that it's better for a woman to cover the head. At the same time, he has also said that it is shameful for a man to cover his head, and it's shameful for a man to grow long hair. So if it was a cultural issue, my question is that was laid for man as well.
Yeah, and also you have people like Samson, who weren't supposed to cut their hair. Everything had a meaning, isn't it, to the individual, and nobody should push or force stuff on others. Years ago, like in the 50s and that, when you went to meet the Queen Elizabeth of England, for honors or whatever, you wore a hat. But that was when they had the tea parties, when they were on the lawn, when they're outdoors and they had hats. But when they went to like a show, this, what I call it, the theater, when they went to a performance, the women didn't wear hats and the Queen didn't wear hats. So you have to decide for yourself, isn't it? is this sinful I'm doing? Is God angry with me, and so on? Because I don't agree with all of the things that Paul says. And at one stage he said that people shouldn't marry if possible. And then you think about Jesus, about God making Adam and Eve, and the two shall cleave together and leave. The man shall leave father and mother, and that stuff. And here's Paul saying, don't marry, because if the woman is married, her preference is to please the husband, not God. And I'm thinking, which woman did he know about? Because God is first in my life. And I know Tendril, and the women in our church, we love our husbands, but God, he is the first in our lives. And because we have God in our lives, then we can be good wives, good Christian wives to our husbands.
So thank you everyone for this. I just want to say values such as modesty, bringing honor to our families, and the way we dress and act, and preserving sexual differences, gender specificity, appearance and demeanor are not culturally defined. So we have lots of had many discussions on this. It's up to individuals to decide. Even Ellen White did not have much comments about this, even though she herself was wearing head covering. And so I know to conclude whether to wear or not to wear. If some of us feel that it's good to wear and it's biblical to wear, even though it's a salvation issue, you're free to wear it. But those who does not really feel that it's necessary to wear head covering, it is left up to them and between God to make these choices. That's what I would leave it. If anybody wants to say something, otherwise we go to the next question.
Yeah, and just adding on about Sister White, a lot of the photographs of her presenting, her testimonies and so within the church, and she's up on the rostrum and she has no hat on. So it's something that I think Satan can use to cause discord in the church. And so we have to be careful. Can I start on question 4? How should we dress for church? Modestly, both men and women. Men don't have on these tight pants and the shirt on button down showing all your chest. And women, to be modestly dressed.
Coming to that question, that's the next question.
Yeah, that's the next question I'm going into, talking about short skirts. And it's a lot to do with culture, isn't it? I noticed that the ladies from the Philippines, they have the dress comes just above their knee. And that would be short for some of us and for me. Then we have Indian women in the saree. I know our ladies in Wallasey, they cover up their midriff, they cover up the tummy with the shawl, the wrap, yeah? And so in the traditional saree, the midriff is out, if one the reddish, unless you wear a shalwar kameez. And then we have, if African ladies, I noticed that the young women, they had a deep plunge. So going from their culture, one culture thought that the legs were the beauty of the woman. Another culture thought it was the midriff was beautiful. And the other ones thought the bust was the beautiful thing. So I remember African lady and young woman in Liverpool. And so it was traditional and that's how they came to church. It was the norm to show cleavage. And she was single and she was being propositioned by men, a married man, and it was upsetting. And so another lady and she came to us to ask advice, why? And we told her she needed to have a higher neckline to cover up, because these men were westernized now. It was not their culture and it was exciting for them. And she was like, oh, she didn't. And so she covered up and nobody bothered her after that. So I think if we were going to Yemen or Saudi Arabia and so on, we would have to cover right up, isn't it? As ladies going to church there, we would be covered up, you know, we a galabia and maybe a yashmak even, depending on where we were, you know, and your hair all covered, just your face open. And I think that in everything else, what you eat, what you wear, what you do, it should all glorify God and whatever culture you come from. And I talked earlier about, I remember doing about the handicap and how to behave to people, you know, who were handicapped, our behavior to everyone. That is one, and how we should be learning and improving ourselves, using what knowledge is available. And that's what we should do as well. One of the things I remember Tendril, when she came and, you know, first came to Liverpool, to Merseyside, yeah. And she was saying, you know, she tucked her chain in from a wedding, you know, so it was under her clothes. Because somebody say, oh, you shouldn't wear jewelry or Adventist, you shouldn't wear it. But from her culture, that was showing that she was married. And I can imagine her back at home in India walking without that and being propositioned by some man because he thought she was single. So it's common sense. And as my teacher used to say when I was growing up, common sense is not common. So if you're wearing a dress that's short, make sure when you're going to sit down that you're not going to expose you, you know, if you're uncomfortable. It's no sense putting on something that's tight and you're short and you keep pulling it down.
Thank
Any
you.
other comments?
I think, Sister DaSilva, you already answered the next question. How should we dress for church? Short skirts, sleeveless? I think this is the question you partly answered. Eld Seelan, would you like to say on this? And we are almost coming to the close, and it's time is.
And one question: why is it all about women? Why were the men involved in it? I remember we went to what you call it, at Southport camp meeting, and there was a young guy, and I'm sure he was going to the gym. You could see his muscles were well defined, and he was at church, but he wanted people to see, you know, that he had a nice body, and he didn't wear shirt, you know, button shirt. He wore a t-shirt and it was like painted on him, and everybody was looking and looking at him. And so for men, that's why I mentioned at the beginning, for both men and women, when we're going to church, we must be decent and modest. Don't increase our sinful desires.
Definitely, we don't exclude men in this, and this certainly we will consider that. And so, Eld Seelan, would you like to share something on this? And we have only 10 minutes left, and we'd like to close.
Yes, Doctor. I think I'll take maybe 1 or 2 minutes. I think Dr. Beulah raised something and nobody answered that. What she raised is like, for if a woman is not covered, let her also be shown. But it is shameful for a woman to be shown or shaved, let her be covered. So I think Paul, you know, this covering of the head, we don't see it anywhere else in the Bible. We see it only in the book of Corinth. So Paul is writing especially to the church at Corinth. So I think as this is a very strong statement in saying, you know, woman, you either cover your head or shave it. You know, that's what he's saying. It's better for you to cover, rather otherwise you shave. And then at the end of the chapter, he concludes by saying, you know, if in all these things he says, and then yet say, if it seems to be contentious, we have no such custom, nor do the churches of God. So he after saying everything, he leaves it to them to decide. It's not a very big issue, but he is admonishing, he is telling them this is what, because in the church of Corinth, like as we said, there are few very wealthy women not covering, and then the rest, all the other women covering. So in the church, there is a problem whether the woman should cover or not cover. So he is answering it, you please cover it. That's why the strong statement. But at the end, he's saying, so now it is up to us to decide. Like you go to India, in most of the Indian churches, especially in Tamil Nadu, you go, especially in villages, all the women cover. But then, the younger generation don't bother about covering the head. So it is not actually sin not to cover, but it's up to, God is saying, the Paul is saying at the end, we leave it to you. Can I move on to the next
Thank you,
question?
sir. Sure,
Okay.
sure.
I don't know whether it answered Dr. Beulah, but it doesn't seem but as he said, I think we don't see it any clear distinction or clear instruction, in the other part of the Bible. So, okay. So how should we dress for the church? Okay. The Bible teaches modesty in dress. In like manner also, the women adorn themselves in a modest apparel, 1 Timothy 2:9. And it's, as Sister Cecile said, I think the question, the ones who put the question specifically mentioned women, but I think it's, but when it comes to the dress, I think it is for both men and women. So the Bible does not say it is a sin for women to look extremely beautiful or to wear nice clothes. So that is clear for us. The Bible says woman's clothing is an expression of her inner self. So that should guide her what clothes to wear for the church. When I look at, I was a bit excited to see what is the meaning of modesty. It says modesty is simple, decent, appropriate, and respectful. I don't know, you might have a few other meanings. Sister White says, in dress, in all, as in all things else, it is our privilege to honor our Creator. He desires our clothing to be not only neat and helpful, but appropriate. We should seek to make the best use of our appearance. Our appearance in every respect should be characterized by neatness, modesty, and purity. The Christian men and women should not wear clothes that overtly tempt the other gender. I think all of us are listening to this. The Christian men, it's Sister Cecile, not women. The Christian men and women should not wear clothes that overtly tempt other gender. Our dress is to be inexpensive, not with gold or pearls or costly array. God designed there should be a plain distinction between male and female dress. Our dress should not be a stumbling block to the opposite sex. I think that is a very, very appropriate statement to us as God's children. I'll just narrate in a very, very few sentences about an incident. It's around 25 years back. I attended one of the Tamil churches in Bangalore. So it was mostly of the local church members and the teachers who worked in the school and in the hospital. So it's a Tamil church. So it has the Tamil churches always have a special culture. I'm not saying the other language do not have cultures, but Tamil has a entirely, they have their own culture. But on one occasion, a Tamil family who settled in, I think, America. Their daughter went to America at a very early age. So she was used to dressing up like the Americans. But on that Sabbath, the father came, the mother came, they were dressed up properly. But when the girl came and walked from into the church somewhere, I think they have the place somewhere in the close to the front, everyone started looking at her. That is because the way she dressed up and came to the church. So that's the, it may be if she has walked into one of the American churches, people would not have looked at it that way. But even in the America or in the European countries, I don't think that's a way to go to the church, so that's not modesty. So that is the right. So our dress should not be a stumbling block to the opposite sex, not only the opposite sex, to any others. So that's setting up an example, isn't it? So, but our clothing, while modest and simple, should be of good quality, of becoming colors and suited for service. And also she talks about, Sister White talks about, it should be chosen for durability rather than display. It should provide warmth and proper protection. Proverbs 31:21, the wise woman described in Proverbs is not afraid of the snow for her household, for all her household are clothed with double garments. Okay, then all who meet up the Sabbath to worship God should, if possible, have neat, well-fitting, comely garments to wear in the house of worship. It is a dishonor to the Sabbath, to God, and to his house for those who profess to believe that the Sabbath is the holy of the Lord and honorable, to wear upon that day the soiled clothing which they have worn through the labors of the week, if they can obtain anything more suitable. So Sabbath, it's a blessed day, it's a holy day. So we should put up our best. When when you go and meet dignitaries, like when you go and meet the highest head in one of the organization, you go as well dressed up. In the same way, when we go to meet God, worship him on the Sabbath, we should go well dressed up, at the same time modestly dressed up. That's my answer to this.
Thank you, sir. I think we have well answered. In conclusion, I just want to add, take the example of Jesus. In his Sermon on the Mount, Christ exhorts his followers not to allow their minds to be absorbed in earthly things. He plainly says, ye cannot serve God and mammon. The distinction is very clear. You cannot serve both God and the world. Therefore, I say unto you, take no thought for your life, what ye shall eat or what ye shall drink, nor yet for your body, what ye shall put on. Is not the life more than meat, and the body than raiment? And why take ye thought for raiment? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They toil not, neither do they spin. And yet I say unto thee, even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. Why did Jesus had to actually recall Solomon at this point? Because Solomon was so engrossed with the thoughts of outward display. When we're talking about our clothes and what we wear, whether it could be male or female, like Solomon was so engrossed with the thoughts of outward display that he failed to elevate his mind by constant connection with God of wisdom. Perfection and beauty of character were overlooked in his attempt to obtain outward beauty. I hope we are understanding what Ellen White is saying here. We are sometimes mostly concerned about our outward beauty than the inner beauty. He sold his honor and integrity of character in seeking to glorify himself before the world and finally became a despot, supporting his extravagance by a grinding taxation upon the people. He first became corrupted heart, then he apostatized from God, and finally became a worshipper of idols. So it's so very important that we have to be very careful in how we dress. The church manual says to dress plainly. It is clearly taught in the scriptures. The Apostle Paul admonishes us to dress ourselves in the modest apparel, as Eld Seelan has mentioned. Let us remember that it is not the outward adornment that expresses the true Christian character. As Peter says, the hidden person of the heart, with the incorruptible beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is very precious in the sight of God. And therefore, as Adventist young people, as Adventist believers, we must be very careful in our celebrations, in the way we dress, in the way we conduct our lives. Our lifestyle should be in harmony with the word of God, the hidden person of the heart, the gentle and quiet spirit, which is very precious in the sight of God. So God of heaven has given us reasoning powers and intellect, and he wants us to use them in whatever we do, whether I'm doing the right thing. And at every point of uncertainty, pray and earnestly inquire, is this the way of the Lord? With your Bible before you, consult with God. As to, this I have already said in the very beginning, with your Bible before you, consult with God as to what he would have you to do. Holy principles are revealed in the word of God, and more in prayer, more in Bible study and witnessing, we should be able to understand the right principles. And to the youth, Ellen White says, lead the youth. It's our responsibility as a church to lead our youth to see that in dress, as in diet, plain living is indispensable to high thinking. Lead them to see how much there is to learn and to do. How precious are the days of youth as a preparation for the life work. Help them to see what treasures there are in the word of God, in the book of nature, and in the records of noble lives. A person's character is judged by his style of dress. A refined taste, a cultivated mind will be revealed in the choice of simple and appropriate attire. Chaste simplicity in dress, when united with modesty of demeanor, will go far towards surrounding a young woman with that atmosphere of sacred reserve, which will be to her a shield from 1,000 perils. So you know what Ellen White is saying, if you are modest, you will be saved from 1,000 perils. And if the half time spent by youth in making themselves attractive in outward appearance were given to soul culture, to the inward adorning, what a difference would it make if young people are involved in thinking and adorning their inward. Many dress like the world, she says. They spend hours that are words then thrown away in studying this or that fashion to decorate the poor mortal body. But here they make a sad and fatal mistake. If they would have a saving influence, if they would have their lifestyle in favor of the truth, let them imitate the humble pattern. Let them show their faith by righteous works and make the distinction broad between themselves and the world. The words, the dress, and the action should tell for God. Ask for yourself, how is it? Are we confessing Christ in our daily life? Do we confess him in our dress, in adoring ourselves? Are we seeking to advance the cause of our master? As I do, whatever I'm doing, is the line of demarcation between you and the world distinct? This is something our young people and our church should know. Is there a distinction between? It may be thin line, but are you seeking to follow the fashions of the degenerate age? Is there no difference between you and the worldlings? Does the same spirit work in you that works in the children of disobedience? The God of heaven has given us reasoning powers and intellect, and he wants us to use them. All who consecrate soul, body, and spirit to God will be constantly receiving a new endowment of physical and mental powers. God requires obedience, not purpose for the purpose of showing his authority, but that we may become one with him in character. God is the author of all beauty, and only as we conform to his ideal shall we approach the standard of true beauty. This is a responsibility from which we cannot free ourselves. Our words, our acts, our dress, our deportment, even the expression of the countenance has an influence. Traditions, what is your guide? Is the Bible is your guide or the traditions? Finally, I would end with Philippians 4:8. Finally, brethren, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. That's my prayer as we conclude today's study and the question and answer session.